Hey, what I'm about to show you is truly one of the most incredible sermon illustrations that I've ever seen. In fact, it's probably the most incredible sermon illustration that I've ever seen. It's from Michael Todd over at Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's an incredibly gifted speaker, gifted leader, and that church has seen a meteoric rise since he became the pastor there 6 years ago. It's been really fun to watch, and he's always been incredibly gifted and creative at capturing the attention of his listeners. And this is one of the things we talk about at Preaching Donkey, how important it is to reach out and grab your listeners, metaphorically, and pull them in so that you can capture their attention, because attention is one of the most difficult things to come by. I talk about this in my first book, Preaching Killer Sermons, just how difficult it is to capture and maintain the interest and attention of your listeners. And so when you're preaching the word, you have to understand that you're speaking to human beings who are going to come in and out of paying attention to you. And so if you can have something big that captures their attention and really drives home the essence and the point of your message, it can be a really incredible thing. And Michael Todd, in this sermon that he gave just this last Sunday, does an incredible job of just making this point inescapable. I want to mention that you do hear people live in the room who are responding to his message, but they are not open to public services right now. They're still in virtual church. And so there are some things that they can do production-wise right now that they probably couldn't do if they were doing this live with a live congregation. But that being said, this is an incredibly unique, creative way of driving the point of his message home. He's in a series right now called Anchored, and this sermon is called Welcome to the Deep. And what he's wanting to do here is drive home the point that in 2021, we need to go deeper. We need to be deeper. He's calling his church to go deeper in their faith, deeper in their experience of God, deeper in the word, and yet to go deeper, they have to be anchored. And so this whole sermon is kind of geared around this one central illustration that's going to demonstrate what happens in Mark 4 when the disciples are on the boat with Jesus and the storm comes. It's a really creative, amazing way of demonstrating this point. So we're going to watch through part of this. I've linked the whole sermon below if you want to watch it. For our purposes, I want to talk about what he's doing, why I think it's so brilliant, and what we can learn from it as people who want to communicate well and capture the interest and attention of our listeners. If you're new here, my name's Lane. This is Preaching Donkey. We talk about sermon prep, sermon delivery, and church leadership. I would love to put something in your hands for free. It's my 21-day guide to creating killer sermons. Just go to preachingdonkey.com/21 days. You can pick yours up there for free. It's a 3-step, 3-week process that will walk you through how to create and deliver a compelling, life-changing message. That's my gift to you as a thank you for watching. So with that, let's dive into the message, and I'm going to give some thoughts along the way.
We have decided that as a church, we're going to be anchored. And last week, we decided that it's not safer in the shallow. And we decided that we were not going to be kiddie pool Christians anymore. And we decided that we were going to be ones that were destined for the deep.
A couple things that I think are going on here that are really cool is he's casting vision to his church. He's telling his church, hey, Transformation, this is what we are going to do. Shallow's not safe. Love that. It's not safe in the shallow. And we are going to be people who are not going to be kiddie pool Christians. We are destined for the deep. This is vision. One of the things that I talk about here at Preaching Donkey is how important it is to decide what you want your church to be and then tell them who they are. Tell your church what and who they are. I met with a pastor one time, and I was asking him, he was way further along than I was, pastored a really large church, and I said, what do you have for me in terms of advice? Right? What would you tell me as a young pastor? And he said, decide what you want your church to be and then tell them what they are. That's what he's doing here. He's saying, we are not, Transformation Church, we are not a shallow church. We're destined for depth. We are going to be a deep church. And then he's going to demonstrate very vividly what that's going to mean. Okay, so at this point, he's leading up to this big moment where he's going to reveal what he's talking about in a very vivid way. So what he's going to do here is really drive home the point of we're destined for the deep. We are going to go deep.
Deep. I said, I'm out here in the deep. Woo! We're out here in the deep. Somebody give God Oh, if you're gonna be in the deep this year, I dare you to give God some praise. So all I wanna say to you is welcome to the deep. No, y'all don't understand. I said welcome to the deep.
Okay, so this is amazing. He's got this incredible effect where he's got this concave, massive screen behind him with this unending ocean, and then he's walking around in actual water. In case you couldn't see, I just wanted to tell you exactly what was going on. This is incredible. I mean, just the effect of just this unending ocean, but then the real water that he's walking in is just amazing.
I'm in the deep. We out here. I'm in the deep. You know what the deep is? The deep is lonely. The deep is isolating. The deep is not where you find the crowd. The deep is where you find the committed. Welcome to the deep. This is a prophetic picture of the rest of 2021. Your friends can't save you out here. People that don't hear from God don't stay in the deep. What are you saying, Pastor Mike? If you're committing to the deep in 2021, you're going to have to make sure you have an what? Anchor. Oh. So we can't just be deep. We have to be prepared for the deep. Why would God give us the word to be anchored in 2021, call us to the deep, and then we're supposed to just drift out here? God said, no. I need you to come to the deep, but I'm going to anchor you myself. And I don't like just saying these things and making analogies. I want to find everything in the Word of God. So go to Mark chapter 4, verse 35. And this is a situation that the disciples find themselves in, like many of us find ourselves in, is that God's calling us to go to the deep, but then some unexpected things happen on the way. And I just want to walk through this biblical story and see if we can find out some things that will help people who will dwell in the deep. Somebody say, I will dwell in the deep. Now, what I'm asking you right now is to make the decision that you're going to go deeper this year, even before you know any of the obstacles that are in the deep. I need you to make a decision before you detour. And that's what God, I believe, is asking us on the first week or the first month or the first series of 2021 is decide before you detour.
He's saying we are going to go deep, but in order to have depth, you have to be anchored. We're not just going to drift in the deep. And so this picture of him being in this water and just this nothingness of the ocean, he's saying you could just drift in the fear of the deep, but we are going to be anchored, and he's going to show what we're going to be anchored in. But then beyond that, he says, let's make a decision before we detour. I love this kind of thing because, again, right now in this moment, he has the attention of everyone listening. If you were there that day, if you were watching the live stream, if you're with your family, if you're with your friends in your home in small groups, and you're watching this live stream, or you're one of the people who are in the room, and this happens, you're not going to forget this. This is not something that is going to be easily forgotten. You're going to be talking about this for a long time. And so this series, Anchored, and this message, Welcome to the Deep, and this idea of being anchored in the deep, and what the anchor is and how important it is to be anchored to Jesus and to the Word if you're going to be in the deep, and deciding that before you detour. All these concepts are concepts that as he's saying them right now, guess what? people are listening because he's captured their attention. And this is one of the most incredible things you can do as a speaker. Now, I will say, some of you might be saying, okay, this feels a little bit too gimmicky for me, or when is he going to get to the word? Watch the whole message. He does. He's capturing attention right now, and then he's going to dive into this story, and he's going to demonstrate in Mark 4 what the disciples do when they're with Jesus and something scary happens, right? The storm comes and they find out that Jesus is laying in the boat on a pillow. He demonstrates all this. He talks about when it gets dark and it's raining and it's storming and you're in the deep and you're in the boat and you don't know where Jesus is and all this. He walks through all of that, and he does it in the most real, tangible way, like with actual water. Now, I do want to say, if you're going to try this, really make sure that you've got no electrical components exposed. You've got good engineering, because this is a electrocution waiting to happen. I'm sure they took measures to make sure that everything was safe, but just be very careful, because anytime you introduce water into a stage, you got to be very, very careful. Okay. With that being said, even if you can't do something like this, right, where maybe you're saying, I don't have the production value to bring water and rain into my stage, there's things that we can learn from this. I did a sermon years ago where I was talking about when Jesus was on the shore, the disciples were fishing, they weren't catching anything, and he says, hey, throw the net on the other side of the boat. And I demonstrated that by sitting in an actual boat on the stage with a big net. I had no water, okay? There was no water involved, but it was just a tangible way to demonstrate that point. It wasn't nearly as creative or cool or clever as what just happened here, but it was just one way to capture attention. So the lessons we can learn from this are, how can we, with the production quality that we have, with the limitations that we have, how can we use our creativity to say, what are some ways that I can drive home my point in a way that, number one, captures everyone's attention, like all eyes are on what he's doing, I guarantee you. And number two is unforgettable. It's memorable. This is something that the people in this church are going to be talking about for a long time, and it's really going to anchor this series in the hearts and minds and in the life of this church. And I think that's a pretty incredible thing. So I want to put it to you in the comments. What do you think about illustrations like this? What do you think about the effectiveness of them? What have you seen done in this kind of creative realm of using a tangible, real illustration or object lesson to drive a point home? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. We got all kinds of content coming every single week to help you in your preaching and your church leadership. And give this video a like if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.